All right, we are going to solve an equation, but we're also going to justify, all right? So we need to, we're pretty good at solving equations, but we need to justify means kind of prove or use the properties to explain why you can do each step. So nice way to kind of organize this is kind of in the two steps or two sides here. I'm going to have my steps kind of on one side, and I have my justification. Justify on the other. So my first step, if I have an equation and I'm solving, is to try to get the x by itself. Okay, so I would start away from the x and I would try to get rid of this 7. To do that, I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides of the equal sign. So we show our work here. If you can see it, I've got 3x plus 7. I subtract 7 from that side. On this side, I do 12 minus 7. The reason you can subtract 7 on both sides is because of the subtraction property. I'm going to abbreviate here. Property of equality. Okay, so see that property of equality, kind of trying to smush this all in here. Most of the time when we're doing things on both sides, it's the property of equality. And so what happens here is these 7's cancel, and so you have 3x cancels here. So you could write plus 0, but I'm just going to write 3x. And then 12 minus 7 is 5. And the reason these cancel is because of the addition, or the additive, excuse me, additive is probably a better way to say it, additive inverse. Okay, so whenever you're adding and subtracting and they cancel because they're the opposite signs, that's your additive inverse. Okay, and then so now I have 3x equals 5. So now we want to get rid of the 3, and so we can do that by two ways. We can think of it as dividing by 3 or by multiplying by 1/3. Okay. Most of us are used to kind of dividing, so I'm going to divide by 3, and if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side. Okay, but keep that in mind here, the whole dividing by 1/3 or multiplying by 1/3 as we go forward. So the reason I can divide on both sides is because of the division property of equality. Okay, the division property of equality. So again, property of equality means you do it on both sides, and so 3 divided by 3 is 1, so it goes away. The same thing is true as 3 times, I'm going to write it kind of the other way, just to make a note, times 1/3 is the same thing. It also gives you 1. So now you're left with x on this side, and on this side you have 3 divided by, or 5 divided by 3, well that's 5 over 3. Okay. The reason these cancel, the 3 times 1/3 or the 3 divided by 3, is because of the multiplicative. I'm going to abbreviate here, multiplicative inverse. Okay, so whenever you're canceling because of dividing or multiplying by the fraction is really kind of what that is. That's your multiplicative inverse. Okay, so not only did I solve here, but I have my justification for each step. Some of the other justifications that you'll see are, the additive property of equality, or we saw the division property of equality here. We also see distribution sometimes as a property. We see substitution if we're plugging into an equation, and then sometimes there might be a step or two where we would just say computation. If really the only thing we're doing in there is just adding two numbers or multiplying two numbers, and we're not actually canceling anything, we might say computation. But this is kind of a basic problem of solving and justifying.